Oh, I see Aladdin. I'm probably butchering your name, bro. We talked last week. So if you're there, say something in the chat if you're still around. So just verify that you're still there, and I'd be happy to bring you up. We talked last week. He was a nice, respectful fella. There he is. All right. Hello, my friend. You're muted. There you are.
Hey, Eric, totally jail. No, today is not totally jail. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's Eric's perspective today because I guess I had a response video from Miss Bobby's perspective, and so I'm just kind of being tongue in cheek there, and so.
So I want to call you totally jail today. So no need for jail today.
Nah, be Jahil on every other day.
It's 1 a.m. here. Anyway, first of all, I'm still waiting for you to do the topic that I hope that we can do. You know, day to Jesus Christ, so I can join you again and we'll discuss about the topic.
Sure.
Whenever you come, we can do it. So I hope that we can do it soon, so I can join you and we can have a long, good, quiet conversation about the day to Jesus Christ. Still waiting for you to pop up with that topic.
Sure, man. Sure.
Yeah, the topic of your stream here, Muslims. That's me. I'm one of the Muslims. Why do you reject the four gospels? Lovely topic. So you're talking about Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, I suppose.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, let us start with Matthew. How about that?
Okay.
So I'll tell you what I know about Matthew first, if you don't mind, make it short. Can you first tell me how many times Matthew was mentioned in the Bible, please?
Off the top of my head? I don't know off the top of my head. He's mentioned in chapter 9.
No. So how many times he was mentioned in the Bible? Yeah, I know he was mentioned once in 9:9. I'm aware of that.
Okay. So off the top of my head, quiz. No, I know he's mentioned when he lists the disciples in chapter 10.
He was mentioned. He was Matthew in Matthew chapter 10 verse 3 and Matthew chapter 9 verse 9.
In Mark, he's mentioned. He's referred to as Levi.
No, I'm talking. Yeah, he's referred to Levi, but some of the scholars said that he was not the Levi. But
so basically, when he lists the 12, and then when he refers to the calling, and then when it's listed the 12 again in Acts, he is mentioned, and that's about it.
No. I'm talking about the book of Matthew. He was mentioned in the book of Matthew twice, in Matthew 10:3 and Matthew 9:9. So I will say something if you don't mind me, please.
Yeah.
Actually, Matthew relied in his gospel, in the Gospel of Mark, as he transferred from Mark, I think 600 paragraphs up to 612 paragraphs of Mark, and he also relied on another document. I think you call it John Bertman Philip. I am sure that you know him. Do you know him? J.B. Phillips. Yeah, he was the first one who translated the English, the most popular. Says in his introduction to the Gospel of Matthew, he said in the introduction, St. Matthew was quoting from the Gospel of St. Mark, and he was revising it, trying to arrive at better and more perfect conception of God. So now the question here. So he asked the question. J.B. Philip asked the question, not me. He said, so if Matthew is the author of the Gospel of Matthew, how could he quote from Mark, who was 10 years old at the time of Christ? How could one of the 12 disciples quote from him?
So are you saying why would Matthew use Mark?
No. I'm saying what I'm telling you. Listen to that. That's what J.B. Phillips says. I will repeat what he said when he translated Matthew.
Sure.
That's what he said exactly. Please listen to me. I hope that you are hearing me.
Yeah, I'm hearing you.
He said, J.B. Phillips says in his introduction to the Gospel of Matthew, which is available online, I think, St. Matthew was quoting from the Gospel of St. Mark. And he was revising it, trying to arrive at a better and more perfect conception of God. Now, he came with a question saying, so if Matthew is the author of the Gospel of Matthew, how could Matthew quote from Mark, who was 10 years old at the time of Christ? How could one
how do we know that
from him?
How do we know about
I'm quoting from J.B. Phillips.
I would just say then I would ask J.B. Phillips, he's not here with us. How would we know that he was that age? Where is he getting that information? What is the source for that?
So you are telling me that J.B. Phillips was mistaken?
Yeah, I don't have I have playlists
Are you sure?
where I
About
argue
that?
against Bart Ehrman. I have arguments where I argue against all kinds of biblical scholars.
No.
So why would
I'm not
I?
talking here about Bart Ehrman. No, I'm talking here. You know who's J.B. Phillips? I told me you know him.
I'm
He's
aware.
one of the
Yeah,
most.
he's the Phillips
Yeah.
translation.
Yeah. Okay, very good.
I don't know where he's getting that information. I don't think that it's correct.
So okay, so you're not sure. So next time, inshallah, when I'll come, I hope that you have answer. Now let's go to the second point of
Whoa.
regard.
Whoa. Hold on. So let me address something because you did at least bring up. No, hold on. Let me answer something real quick though about the age.
Please do. I said please do answer. I'm listening.
Yes. So I don't have anything about the age because I've never heard of that before. Okay, I don't know where he's getting this information about the age because we don't know how old Mark was. Mark appears in Acts, so he couldn't be that young. Okay, if he's in Acts traveling around with Paul, and Paul refers to him multiple times in his letters as somebody who's useful in the gospel to him, he can't just be some little kid. Okay, and Mark could have wrote his gospel later, and he's getting his information from Peter. And if he's getting his information from Peter, then I don't see what the difference is or why it even matters. Nobody's even claiming that Mark is an eyewitness. Okay, I'm done now. Sorry if I was a little long-winded there.
No, it's okay. I don't like to interrupt you. I told you I'm talking to anybody.
Sure,
That's my answer.
Yep.
Now, okay. Now let's come to the second point. I was listening to you. I'll come to the second point. As I said, the Gospel of Matthew, the tax collector, mentioned the name of Matthew twice in the Gospel of Matthew, in Matthew 10:3 and Matthew 9:9, and did not indicate from near or far that he was the writer or the author of the Matthew Gospel.
Okay. Yeah.
Can I finish, please? So the Gospel of Matthew mentioned him among the 12 disciples. Did not make him first or last. Then he spoke about his following of Christ, and he said in Matthew 9:9. So this is the one I want to read. In Matthew 9:9, you read, as Jesus passed on from there, he saw a man. So the author of the Gospel of Matthew said, as Jesus passed on from there, Jesus saw a man called Matthew sitting at the tax booth, and he said to him, follow me, and rose, and he followed him. So the author of Matthew talking about Jesus seeing Matthew. And am I correct? Now,
yes.
The author of Matthew in Matthew 9:9, listen to this very carefully, used the third talking person style. So if Matthew was the writer, he was supposed to say, he said to me.
Yeah.
He was supposed to say, I followed him.
Mm-hmm.
He was supposed to say, he saw me.
Yeah.
So I think this indicates that he is not the author of the writer, because the author of Matthew was talking about Matthew. So if Matthew was talking about himself, he would refer to himself. So sound like a third person, not Matthew, wrote the book of Matthew, talking about Matthew with Jesus.
Okay.
How can you explain that, please?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. I appreciate you bringing that up. That's a very common objection, actually. And actually, it was answered many centuries ago. And so it wasn't until the time of Augustine did anyone challenge the traditional authorship of the Gospels, as I mentioned with my other friend there. It was Faustus the Manichaean that we have on record. And Faustus actually brought up this very objection. So this Manichaean heretic, which doesn't make him wrong just because he's a Manichaean, brought up the same objection. And Augustine didn't pull any punches. He said, Faustus thinks himself wonderfully clever in proving that Matthew is not the writer of the gospel, because when speaking of his own election, he says not, he saw me and said to me, follow me, but he saw him and said to him, follow me. This must have been said in ignorance or from a design to mislead. I don't think you're saying this from a design to mislead or ignorance, by the way. I'm just saying what Augustine said. I'm quoting Augustine here. And then he goes on. Augustine says, Faustus can hardly be so ignorant as to have not read or heard that narrators, when speaking of themselves, often use a construction as if speaking of another. It is more probable that Faustus wished to bewilder those more ignorant than himself in the hope of getting a hold of not a few unacquainted with these things. It is needless to resort to other writings to quote examples of this construction from profane authors for the information of our friends and for the reputation of Faustus. So he doesn't pull any punches there. But since Augustine says I don't need to mention it, I will go ahead and mention some of the profane authors. Xenophon was an Athenian military leader and a writer, along with Plato and Aristophanes, and he is one of our primary literary sources regarding Socrates. This is what he says. This is Anabasis 3:1-4. There was a man in the army named Xenophon, referring to himself in the third person, an Athenian who was neither a general nor a captain nor a private. Okay, I won't read the whole quote. Then there is Josephus. Josephus also refers to himself in the third person. He says, this is in the Jewish war. However, in extreme distress, he was not destitute of his usual sagacity, but trusting himself to the providence of God, he put his life into hazard. And he goes on and on. He refers to himself repeatedly in the third person. Julius Caesar, famously, constantly, repeatedly quoted or refers to himself in the third person in his volume on the Gallic Wars. But the point is this: Augustine is absolutely right. It's not an uncommon thing at all for ancient writers to do. Barth's response that Matthew, this is Barth, this is something I'm reading off my blog because Bart Ehrman makes the same objection, Sheikh Rahman, that Matthew could have been a witness because of this, but he's just wrong. It doesn't fly. It's not a good argument. I wouldn't use this one if I was arguing against the authorship of Matthew.
See, I was listening to you. You mentioned Xenophon, Josephus, Julius Caesar, and you said that they refer to themselves as the third person.
Yes, and that's just a small sampling.
Okay. Can you show me, anywhere in the Bible where they refer to themselves as a third person?
Moses?
No, can you show me that, please?
Numbers 12:3.
Numbers 12:3. What does it say?
You want me to pull it up?
Yeah, just pull it up. I'm just listening to you, of course.
Yeah.
Numbers. I will try to pull it out as well here. See.
Yeah.
Numbers 12:3.
Yeah.
Because I have the Bible with me as well. So.
Okay, so Moses, or Numbers is traditionally ascribed to Moses. Now, Moses was a very humble man, more humble than anyone else on the face of the earth.
Excuse me. The way I read it here in English, it says, now the man said Moses was very meek.
Oh, the man Moses, sure. I was reading the NIV. And so, yeah, ESV, whatever, he's still referring to himself as the man Moses.
So you mean there's a third person talking about Moses, or Moses was referring to him?
Well, as I said earlier, Numbers is traditionally ascribed to...
No, actually, if I'm reading the Arabic, I see I have different translations and versions. I have even the Filipino language, I have the Arabic language, I have some of the English. You see, if you go to the Arabic and if you go to the Filipino, it says, وَأَمَّا الرَّجُلُ مُوسَى. So that's referred to a third person talking about Moses. If you go to the Tagalog, it says, ang lalaking nang si Moses. It's referred to another man talking about Moses.
Okay, so
third person here. So
every English translation that I'm looking at, which is translating it out of the Greek, like here is the NASB 95, which is considered to be one of the most literal translations out there. Now the man Moses was very humble, more than any man who was on the face of the earth. So okay, but the thing is I'm saying ancient authors of Matthew's time, and whether we have this from the Bible or not, which I would say that we do, or they're translating out of the Hebrew. Did I say Greek? Excuse me. And so this is what we have. This is not an uncommon literary device at all. So it's a cumulative thing. The third person objection isn't very strong because other people, ancient authors of that time, used it. And we have all the external evidence plus this internal evidence. And then the internal evidence against is just not that strong.
I'm sorry, Eric. You see, I did not interrupt you. While you are talking, I was listening to you and I was looking into the Bible Gateway. You see, I quote in front of me Numbers 12, verse 3. You said Moses was talking about himself as a third person. But if you go to other versions, it shows you that there's a third person actually was talking about Moses. Because
so who wrote that?
I don't know. I'm just trying to show you that there's a third person which is not Moses. Can I finish this?
No. Actually, I'm going to interrupt for this time because I think you get
you always interrupt me. Even last time.
No, you get a little too hung up on the niceties. No. I appreciate the niceties. No. I'd rather have the niceties than the meanness. No, listen, but you're getting off topic. That's what I'm trying to get. Let's say my argument about Moses sucks and it's bad. It's getting to be like, okay, but I'm showed you that people do use the third person narration. It is a historical thing that multiple people use. I gave you 3 examples. We're asking why should we not trust the Gospels and why we should trust the Quran over the Gospels. But now we're arguing about, did Moses really say this about himself or did somebody else say this about Moses? And that's not the point of the stream. So I apologize. I'm not trying to offend you or anything like that. But I'm trying to grab the situation and bring it back on topic because this is off topic. This is like, okay. This is just, okay. It's kind of pedantic, honestly.
No, with all due respect to you, Eric, I hope that you will give me at least a couple of minutes talking without interrupting me. Like
yeah. As long as you're not going to use this third person argument again.
No, actually, the argument is third person about Matthew. So therefore, you jump, not me. You jump to Numbers 12:3. I said I want to see.
Because you asked me for a reference in the Bible.
Yeah, so very good. Yeah, very good. Yeah, I agree with that. So I jumped to Numbers 12:3.
So let's say we throw it out and just say, for the sake of argument.
Can I finish?
For the sake of argument, I'm wrong. Does it matter?
No. I want to say you are wrong.
Does it matter for the sake of this argument? Does it really matter when I've already refuted the point that people use third person narration all the time?
As I told you, I don't like to interrupt any person's talking. So when you are done, please tell me to talk. So I'll have a couple of minutes and I can make my point.
Okay, go ahead. Here, listen. Look. I'm going to mute my mic.
No.
There you go.
Yeah. You cannot control yourself, so therefore you are mute your mic. No, I'm not asking you to mute your mic. That's your show, and I'm your guest, and I follow your rules. You used, I say it with all due respect to you, I need you to give me any other examples from the Bible about third person, talking about himself as a third person. You quote Numbers 12:3, and you said now the man Moses, so he referred to himself as the third person. So when I go to other versions of the Bible, for example, if I'm reading that in front of me, EASY, it said he was the most humble. So I don't think Moses will say that he was. He will say I am. There are so many other versions. Let's say if you go to EXB, it said he was as well. So if you go to
let's just for the sake of argument, fine. Okie dokie. It doesn't matter. Like, how does this, where is, sorry, I did the thing I said I wouldn't do. But
you did. You interrupted me. You said 2 minutes.
Where, but who cares if he referred to himself in the third person? Because Xenophon did it. Julius Caesar did it. Josephus did it. Why can't Matthew do it? This doesn't put a really big dent in the fact that Matthew could have wrote Matthew.
So you want me to pass this point? Forget about it.
Well, I'm just saying I don't think it's super relevant.
No, it's not super relevant. So what I'm trying to tell you here.
So let's stick with the relevant stuff. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm trying to tell you here that the verse that he quote from Numbers 12:30, it doesn't say that Moses was talking about himself as a third person, because he says he said he was. Anyway, never mind. Let's go to Mark. It's okay.
Okay, let's go to Mark. Let's go to Mark. Yeah.
We'll bust this point. No problem. This is bothering you. I will leave it for you. Now, let's go to Mark. Gospel of Mark. Mark actually was not a disciple of Christ, but he was a disciple of Paul and Peter. Luke's commentator, Dennis Nenham, states that no one by that name was known to have had a close connections, a special relation with Jesus Christ, or to have had special reputation in the early church. So what do you think of that? That's what, I'm reading from the commentator of Luke's. His name, I'm sure you know him. He's very known as a commentator. His name is Dennis Nenham. Do you know him?
Oh no, Ninem. You don't want to use Ninem.
No. You see,
You
I'm
don't
quoting.
want to use Ninem. Ninem's bad. Ninem's bad.
So
No,
he's
no,
bad.
not
So
Ninem.
no, I'm not saying he's bad or not. So what do you think what he's saying?
I
I
think
quote you what he's saying.
I think Ninem is well, he's wrong. I mean, first of all, John Mark. There's a John Mark mentioned in Acts chapter 13, and if you remember, there was a big fight that broke out between Paul and Barnabas. Barnabas wanted to bring Mark along with him. Paul was like, "No, we were persecuted in the last 3 towns, and he left us. He abandoned us, and I'm not going to take a risk taking him again. He's going to, there was a dispute. This is all in Acts 13. I believe it's 44 through 50 or thereabout. Don't hold me to that specifically, but it's there. Colossians, Paul, just writing offhandedly, mentions that Mark is the cousin of Barnabas. Okay, that's interesting. That kind of explains why. That seems pretty historical. It fits, right? Why wouldn't Barnabas want to bring his cousin and stump for his cousin and be willing to argue over kin with it, right? So first of all, why would you invent that guy as being a gospel writer? That's kind of strange. And second of all, I don't know where Ninem is even getting his information from. Okay, like yes, we know that he wasn't a witness. I mean, Justin Martyr tells us that they had companions of the apostles, but all of the early church fathers tell us that Mark is based on Peter's testimony. Ninem just makes this assumption looking at a flat map instead of looking at a topographical map that he has no idea what he's talking about. And so I don't think Ninem is a good source here in general. He's always looking for a negative verdict against the Gospels.
I'll speak. It's my turn.
Yeah.
Eric,
I got about 15 minutes, and then I probably need to wrap it up since I'm getting.
No. Actually, you see, from your 15 minutes, I might be able to speak 4 minutes.
Yeah,
will be speaking to. No, I'll speak only. I will speak 11 minutes. That's what you might give me. You might allow me to speak 2 or 3 minutes.
Oh, bro.
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding because you keep interrupting me. Actually, I didn't even finish one statement. Right? You said you mute yourself, then you. Anyway, let's go back to the topic. You see, when I brought G.B. Phillips, you said he's an ignorant. So I passed it and I said, okay, forget about him. When I brought Dennis Denham, you said, nah, he's wrong. Please don't bring him. He doesn't know where he gets his information from. Okay, we'll pass it also. Now, the testimony of the historian. Do you know the historian Papias, 140 AD?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So the testimony of the historian Papias, 140 AD, when he said that the elder John used to say that when Mark became Peter's interpreter, he wrote down the great cure everything he remembered, and that he did not, however, narrate in the same exact order the saying and deeds of Jesus Christ, because he had not heard from Jesus Christ or accompanied him at any time. But consequently, as I said, he joined Peter, who began to formulate the teachings of Jesus Christ to suit the needs of the listeners and not to make a narration closely related to Jesus and about Jesus for his saying. Okay. So that's what the historian Papias 140 AD said. So what do you think about his saying?
I don't have a problem with it.
So you have no problem with him saying that Mark never been with
no,
never been with Jesus.
This isn't news.
He never accompanied Jesus. He never spoke directly with Jesus.
Yeah, what's the problem? If he talked,
no.
If he talked,
he's one of the disciples. So you mean he's one of the disciples who never been with Jesus? He never accompanied Jesus or talked with Jesus directly?
No, he's a companion.
Or whatever stuff.
He's Peter's companion and secretary.
Yeah. So but he was not. So he was not one of Christ. So he was copying from Paul and Peter. That's what he has done.
He was getting.
He learned from Peter.
What would be wrong with that? They're witnesses.
So you are telling me that Mark is not a direct witness to Jesus Christ?
No Christian, unless they're completely Jahil.
No. Some Christians, they call him as the gospel and blah, blah, blah. So he's,
Yeah, no. So Justin Martyr says that he calls the Gospels the memoirs of the apostles. And then shortly after he quotes Mark's gospel, Mark 3:7, he says there's the memoirs of Peter, but then all of the early church fathers, including Papias, including Clement, including Irenaeus, including it's unanimous that Mark was not one of the 12, that he was a companion. So even Justin Martyr, when he doesn't even name who the 4 gospel writers are, he says they were written by apostles and companions of apostles. I don't have a problem with Mark not being a direct witness any more than I have a problem with Luke being a direct witness. If they're getting their information from witnesses, then what's the problem?
Okay, it's my turn to talk.
Yeah, I probably got to wrap it. But go ahead.
Okay, this is the last point because it's 2 a.m. almost here. We have to as well. Because I've been waiting for quite a long time backstage. I was surprised that the title is Muslims. We're talking to an atheist. So I was surprised that you have a Muslim backstage and you're talking with an atheist.
I didn't have anybody else to come up, man. I didn't have anybody else.
No, I was backstage. I was typing for you. I am Muslims. I'm here. Hi.
Oh, you're talking to the atheist. I think you're too worried about. I feel like I'm getting.
No. I just like
what is it? I'm getting lectured constantly about my.
No.
Etiquette. I don't save the etiquette lecture for somebody else. I respect you, but you're wasting my time with it. Let's talk the points.
Okay, you're considering me wasting your time.
The etiquette lectures gotta go. They gotta go.
Okay. Regarding the existence of the conclusion of the Gospel of Mark, Father Kissinger says the last verses must have been deleted when the book of Mark was officially published to the public by the community that's included it. Mark's commentator, whom you refused a while ago, Dennis Nenham, says it is not certain whether the popular saying that identifies Mark as an author of the Gospel in John, Mark, Acts 12:12, Acts 12:25, I'm not mistaken, up to the end. Now, the most important is that occupied the researchers in regard of this gospel, the Gospel of Mark, it's ending. They said the ending of this gospel, chapter 16, from verse 9 to verse 20, is not found in the most important ancient manuscript, such as the Vatican manuscript and the Sinaitic manuscript. William Barclay says the famous ending, in addition to not being found in the ancient original version, it is linguistic style differs from the rest of the gospel, and the Revised Standard Version consider it an unreliable passages. And Saint Jerome in the 5th century mentioned that the early fathers doubted this ending. Maureen Bucali comments, what a frank admission of the existence of human changes to the sacred text. So what do you think of that?
So
that's the last comment for me.
This is actually a point in my favor because we have a lot of manuscripts. We can go back to the earliest manuscripts. We can find out things that were inserted and things that were not inserted, and we can make determinations based on the manuscripts by then comparing them with each other. And so if it was added to the text, we can trace that through textual criticism, but you can't take that and draw sweeping conclusions that everything else was corrupted and everything else was invented for all of the reasons that I spent the first hour of the stream outlining. So everybody knows about the long ending of Mark. Nobody is troubled by that.
Well, okay, this is your answer, sir. I won't waste your time anymore.
If you, even Bart Ehrman will admit that, like, even though, like, say there's this insertion from the long Ennead mark, let's just say that it is an insertion, or the pericope adulterae in John chapter 8 is an insertion. He says, basically, we have the text, even though he tries to argue otherwise, when he's being honest, and I can give you a quote from the end of his book on textual criticism, where he's basically like, me and Bruce Metzger, a conservative Christian scholar, are in agreement that there is no fundamental Christian doctrine where the story of Jesus basically is significantly changed in a place where, like, we can't recognize it. And so no, like, this isn't anything that we don't know. It's the long Ennead mark that we have tons of text, and that's why we do textual criticism.
You see, the point was I was trying to make here, if you are not, sure among yourself as a Christian about the conclusion of the gospel, so how sure you are about the rest of the gospel? That's the point I was trying to make.
Yeah, sure. Anyway, it's really simple. It's because we have, first of all, if Mark ends at chapter 8, we still have an empty tomb and an angel saying that Jesus is resurrected from the dead and he's gone to Galilee. You're going to go and meet him there. We still have the crucifixion narratives and everything else that are in there, that no historical scholar is going to say, no, like, that stuff didn't happen. Jesus wasn't really crucified. We still have Luke's gospel, which gives us actual details of what the resurrection appearances were like. We see all the different reasons that Luke is a reliable author who is knowledgeable, who knows, is close up to the facts, is truthful, and multiple times over and over and over again.
Well, thank you very much for your time, and I hope that I did not waste your time, as you said. Okay. So,
well, as long as we're not correcting each other all the time over etiquette, then I understand saying, hey, excuse me, can I get my point out? That's fine. I let the same guy do the same thing. So that's totally fine. But when it's like that becomes the distraction to the conversation, then it ceases to be productive. So, but I appreciate you, bro. I think you're respectful, and I appreciate that. I would rather have that than somebody who just wants to yell at me and talk over me. And so I appreciate that.
Well, anyway, before I step out, it's almost 2 a.m. here. So that's the third time I'll ask you, will you please be kind enough to give me a specific time where I can join you and me and you can exchange mind, just talking about the deity of Jesus as promised me. Can we do that here?
I'll tell you what, when you can refute the arguments that I've made over the trustworthiness of the Gospels, at least give me like an explanation for the data that I'm presenting to you, then maybe. I don't have a specific time of when I'm going to have that particular. I just don't know. I don't know when I'm going to have that particular topic come up. It's not something I'm planning out that far ahead. I'm a history guy. I'd like to talk history. And so I'm probably going to be talking about history. I will get to deity of Christ stuff eventually, but I honestly just don't know. So I can't make you a promise on that. But you're welcome to come up when I do, and just tap the bell for notifications, and I'm sure you'll see it, and you're welcome to come up then.
I'm sorry, you are a history guy? I didn't know that. You mean you studied history?
No, I'm just saying I'm drawn to history. My channel focuses on history. I would say 90% of my videos are based on arguing for the reliability of the Gospels or reliability of the New Testament. I read a lot of books, a lot of sources, a lot of things along the lines of history. I would spend more time in history than in breaking down the nitty-gritty of which model of the Trinity is correct, or which, that kind of thing. So
can I ask you a very simple question about historical incident in the Bible? Just before I step up, if you want. If not, it's okay. Let's step up. It's one simple question.
I'm at 2 hours and 50 minutes, bro, and so I'm shutting it down. So I appreciate it, though.
Okay. So I respect your wish. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. God bless everybody. Good night.
Yeah.
Peace.
Take care.